Hi guys, I'm Stasha. I'm an alcoholic. I am a grateful alcoholic. I'm so grateful to be here today. Um, I am an alcoholic. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. My sobriety date is 9/29/22. Today I have 982 days away from my last drink. That's 2 years, 8 months, and 9 days. Um, it has been a wild ride. I definitely laugh a lot at things that are inappropriate. And so I want to start out by prefacing that while I will giggle a whole lot through this, I do understand the deadliness of this disease and how serious it is. I think it's important that I say that um, because I do laugh a lot and I make jokes about this experience. Um, so I was born to two alcoholic parents in Wisconsin. And when I was pretty young, we relocated a few times, partially because of my dad's job, but partially because my parents were active in addiction and they wanted to, um, change people, places, and things. And so we relocated to Duluth, Minnesota, which is where I was raised for the majority of my childhood. While I was like thinking about this, I was like, with the majority of my life, and I'm like, oh gosh, it hasn't been the majority of my life anymore. I've been in New Mexico for a long time now. So now I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And when I was growing up in Duluth, I was about 5 years old when we settled into our home that we were going to be in for a little while. I've moved a lot in my life. So I don't have like a one home that I grew up in, but the home that my early life was in that I remember, I was about 5 years old and we moved in next door to a family that drank about as much as my parents did, and they partied a lot, and they and us kids ran around the neighborhood. And I mean, I had a pretty good childhood. I definitely did experience some trauma with having um, being a child of alcoholics. Um, but um, but for the most part, that was, I had like a pretty normal dysfunctional life. um, I went to school every day. My parents had me involved in extracurricular activities, and they did the best with what they had. When I was 5 or 6, we also started getting involved in a church for the first time in my life. So this was also the first time that I had encountered God. And an innocent child, I was able to be receptive to that higher power. And that is the beginning of that in my life. At the same time, while the kids were all playing, there was this hill by our house that we all called Killer Hill, and we would all bike down it. And well, everyone except for me, because I'm a chicken. And one day I finally went halfway up the hill and I biked down and I slipped on some gravel and I smashed my helmet into a bunch of pieces and I scraped myself up pretty good. My parents were having a party, and instead of taking me to the doctor, my mom gave me a glass of champagne. I was like 5 or 6 years old. And so that was the first time that alcohol was introduced to me. Um, and I remember being like, oh, I know why they drink this. Like, I get it now. I know why we walk every night after dinner down to the bottle shop. This is warm and fuzzy. And I remember, knowing that it was wrong. I remember being like, my mom shouldn't be doing this. She shouldn't be giving me this. Like, she should be taking me to the doctor. Um, and that was a really impactful moment for me. And then, years go by. I again like live a pretty normal childhood. Um, I'm involved in plays and I live, like I said, like just a pretty normal life. My parents get divorced when I'm 12. And I was like, thank God, because my dad, he drinks a lot more than my mom does. And his alcoholism was really impacting our family. So I was really excited for the divorce. My mom was when during the divorce, my mom quit drinking for about 8 years, and really started to kind of work on herself and get reconnected with a higher power. Um, we stopped going to church when my parents got divorced, and we started practicing something called City Yoga, which was a uh, like a Eastern kind of meditation and chanting um and yoga. It was all of this different. It was a totally different spiritual program than what I was used to. But again, like I felt connected to a higher power through that. And and that's important because I do lose that connection through my story. And found my way back through AA. Um, I was 15 when I started drinking, when I really started to drink. I remember that I got drunk with a few friends. My best friend had already been drinking for a little while, and she was like, "This is going to be so fun." And we got drunk. We were in Superior, Wisconsin, and we all got drunk, and I had a meltdown while I was wasted, and I uh, I just remember like I remember liking getting drunk. I remember not really caring about the fact that I had a big old meltdown. I remember waking up the next morning earlier than everybody else and with no hangover. And I just thought that was really weird. I thought like I was supposed to be sick and I wasn't. Um, like a normal high schooler is what I thought, but here we go. Here's the beginning of my alcoholic drinking, where I binge drink, like weekends, parties, whatever, binge drink on the weekends, and then, manage to maintain school. Um, I thought it was totally normal. I thought that what I was doing, the partying that I was doing was totally normal. I obviously I didn't tell my parents that I was drinking. Um, there was one time where I went to a party and there were a bunch of people from my job there, and I worked with my dad, and it was just not good. So one of the girls told on me for being at this party and told my dad that I had been drinking. And so he pulls me aside and asks me, "Have you been drinking?" And I said, "No, absolutely not." And he's like, "Well, are you smoking?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm smoking cigarettes." Because I knew that I had to be honest about one of those things. I couldn't lie about both of them. And it worked. He believed me. Um, I uh, I just continued to drink like that for a while. I remember being 16 and I was working as a host at the restaurant with my dad. And I sat down on the bench and I said, "Oh, a drink sounds so nice." And I was like, "Girl, you are 16." And I remember like having this whole like come to Jesus moment. And I was like, "No, we are not drinking anymore. Like, you cannot become an alcoholic like your dad." And so I went through a dry time where I was always the DD for all of my friends. And like, I remember getting, everyone around me is all drunk and I'm drinking my Sprite, and I'm just as giddy and goofy as everybody else. And I was having a great time without the alcohol. And I remember that. I remember thinking I don't need booze to have fun. And that went on for a little while. I don't remember how long. It probably was like a few months at a time, and then I would maybe drink, and then I would go through a dry spell again. Um, and then I moved out when I was 17 with that best friend. She moved down here to Albuquerque and we got an apartment together. And boy, oh boy, nobody was looking. So we were drinking and we were smoking pot and we were having a great old time. Um, and we were hanging out with boys and we were finding ourselves in situations that we shouldn't be in. And because we were fucking kids, we were 17. Like, what were we doing? Um, And I continued to binge drink through that time. I remember drinking and getting up and going to work. And I remember, just my hangovers would hit at like 4 p.m. And so I remember being like, I can work all day and then I can go home and I can drink to like hair of the dog, get rid of this hangover. Um, and so that drinking kind of got pretty consistent. I found out I was pregnant with my son when I was 17. I remember picking up a shot and taking it to my mouth, and I went, I can't drink this. And I put it down and I knew something was wrong. And sure enough, I was pregnant. I had my son at 18. I, didn't want to be an alcoholic parent. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I thought that I was still like narrowly escaping alcoholism. And my mom tried to tell me a few times, like, hey, that binge drinking that you're doing is not normal. That binge drinking that you're doing is alcoholic drinking. Like, you getting fucked up just because you can, like, just because you don't, when the weekend that I wouldn't have my son or whatever, I would send him to my mom's house. And because it was like my right to get fucked up because I didn't have my kid with me. And so I would go out and I would get wasted and I would party and I'd have a great time. And nothing really ever terrible happened at this point. So it was working still the way that I was drinking. I remember there was one point in my life, there was one bottle of wine in my whole life that I remember having in my fridge for longer than a day. I remember when my son was small, I remember being like, oh, this is cool. Like you can just have like one glass of wine. Like that's neat. Um, and I did that for, that one bottle. And then after that it was, oh, but you can get drunk off of a bottle of wine real easy too. um, and I really enjoyed being drunk. I really enjoyed the, not feeling all of the things that I was feeling. I had some trauma in my early life that I didn't even recognize as trauma until I was an adult. There were some things that happened in my childhood with my parents drinking, like their fights and the cops getting called and things like that, that I didn't recognize as having impacted me. I just thought this was like kind of normal life. And I was I just thought that what I was doing was normal. I really thought that the way that I was drinking was like healthy and normal. And I wasn't an alcoholic because I didn't drink every day and I didn't day drink and I didn't do these things that like qualified people to be alcoholics. Um, so I drank like that for pretty much all of my 20s, binge drank. Um, I met my partner when I was about 28 and I have never felt so safe in my life with somebody. And I remember we met on Tinder, and I remember in one of his Tinder pictures, he had a beer in his hand. And I was like, oh no, red flag. And the alcoholic that I am was like, girl, people drink normal. Like, it's okay for him to have a beer in his hand in his picture on Tinder. It's not a big deal. Like, there are normal drinkers out there. Like, calm down. Not everyone's an alcoholic like your dad. Well, he's an alcoholic. Red flag was read correctly. He and he told me he was an alcoholic and he said, I have no desire to quit drinking but this is what I do. And I remember just feeling so safe with him that I was like, well, I want to explore like drinking, like what I thought was a normal person. I thought it was normal that you go and have brunch with your friends and you go have a drink. And that's what he did, and so I wanted to participate in that. I wanted to drink like everybody else. The big book tells us that the great obsession of every alcoholic is that we want to drink like everybody else. And that was truly, truly, truly what I thought. I was like, I just want to drink like everyone else. I want to enjoy beer in the garage with my dad and my brother. I want to throw darts with them and I want to be a part of, right? Like I want to be a part of. And so I learned how to drink beer and I learned how to, you know, because I wasn't a beer drinker prior to this at all. And I acquired a taste for beer over the few years that my drinking really increased. And before you know it, I was drinking every single day. I was buying, we would buy a 6 pack and he would buy his like shooters and he would drink his half and I would drink my half. And then it became, well, you've got shooters. That's not fair. Like, let me have the fourth beer. Like, come on. And then it's like, oh shit, I accidentally drank 5 of the beers. My bad. And then it's like, oh shit, let's just start getting our own 6 packs. And so very quickly, my drinking progressed to every day, at least a 6 pack. And then I upped it to 6 pack and 2 ponies. And that became my everyday situation was 99s and beer, a high ABV and sitting in my car after work, drinking my beer, getting fucked up, chain smoking cigarettes, calling my grandma wasted. I don't know why I choose to call my grandma every time I get drunk, but I my drinking was just it was crazy, and we would go out and we would get into fights and we would argue and we would yell and we'd push each other and we would things got crazy, and I still somehow managed to like convince myself that this was normal because this is what I grew up with. Like, this is the kind of drinking that I grew up with, and this felt really normal to me. Um, One time we went out and I won't make this a big drunkalog, but one time I went out and I've told this story before, but I locked my keys in the car and I was so drunk I called the locksmith and he couldn't come. It's like two in the morning. He couldn't make it, had a family emergency or something. So I end up busting my window so that I can get home. And the window is still busted on that van to this day, almost 3 years sober. The unmanageability was getting out of fucking hand. It was wild. Like, I was busting out my windows. I was fighting with my partner in front of my children. I mean, my partner and I would get into arguments and I would fucking take off over the back wall. Like, I climbed like a 6 foot fucking wall and fucking jumped over it. I've got scars all over my arms from the wall. We went out the last time that we went out. It was a Wednesday night and we went out to go dancing, and the place that we would go to, I never paid for drinks. My partner was a regular there for like 10 years. And at this point, he had started working there. And so I never paid for drinks there. And so I would just drink as much as I wanted to, and I would just get messed up. And that last night that we went out, we got into an argument. I remember very little about that night. Very, very little. I remember that I fell at some point. I remember being like on all fours by my car. And I remember leaving without him. I remember him walking home and I took the car. And I don't remember getting home. I remember a few days later, I remembered like I turned a corner and I was like, oh shit. I remember turning this corner that night. Like, there were like pieces, right? Like blackout, drink yourself into oblivion type of drunk. I got home and I had a black eye. No clue how I got this black eye. Not a clue at all. I imagine that when I fell, maybe I gotta like piece it together because it doesn't make any sense. I It was such a bad black eye that I think I may have even like broke my occipital bone, because the next morning I took a shower and I blew my nose and the air like came and puffed my eye up. It was a really bad situation and I wouldn't go to the hospital because I was ashamed. I was full of shame and guilt and remorse and all of these things. And it was, I woke up on September 29th and I said, okay, I'm for real going to do sober October, because I had tried many times before and I'd only made it about 3 days into October. And so October was coming up. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do sober October. I I said to myself, okay, I know that AA can help me because with my parents being alcoholics, my grandparents were also alcoholics. And my grandpa had tried AA, and my mom knew about AA, and she knew about Al-Anon. And so she had told me throughout my life, like she had tried to get my dad to go to AA, and she had told me about Al-Anon. I have like it's not the Daily Reflections book. I think it's called Daily Affirmations. It's an Al-Anon publication. And I have that. It was my mom's. And it's like a daily reading, just like the Daily Reflection. And so I knew a little bit about 12-step programs. My mom also had dated a guy when my son was young, and he had some experience in NA, and so he had shared a little bit of his experience, strength and hope with me throughout their time dating. And so I knew a little bit that the 12-step programs could maybe help me get sober, or at least like keep me sober for 30 days. And so I jumped online, and I put in to the little box on the AA website, like, I need help. I want to quit drinking. This is my first attempt. Please help. And I received back so much love and so many messages from women who were doing service on that, line. And they said, here, go to a meeting, get your ass to a meeting, get your ass to a meeting, get your ass to a meeting. They said, you can go on Zoom. They said, you can go in person. Here's all the resources that you could possibly need. Here's an app that will help you find a local meeting. Here's an app that'll help you find online meetings. They were just the most helpful. And I was, for the first time in that moment, like, because I was so hopeless, I was so scared. I remember telling my best friend, if I can't quit for 30 days, like, I have to go to rehab. I was so scared. And so I end up coming to this meeting. Essentially, it's a long story, but I end up coming to this meeting, and on day 3 of being sober, and everybody starts sharing. It was me and another guy who it was our first day, and so they turned the meeting around to a first step meeting, and they shared what it was like for them, what their drinking was like before it got devastating. They shared when it got devastating. They shared what they did when it got devastating, and they shared what their life was like now. And I remember thinking, like, these are my people. Like, at the bar, like, I'm the friendly one, right? Like, I go make friends with everybody, and I'm like, let's go be friends. Like, oh my God, how are you? Let's talk about my kids. And like, I wanted to be friends with everybody. And so I I remember thinking, these are my people. Like, these are my people from the bar. Like, these guys in here, these ladies in here, these are the people that I would kick it with at the bar. Um, which was like a really comforting feeling because I felt a part of, right? Like, I right away felt like I fit in. You guys started to share your experience, strength, and hope. And it was like you guys were telling my story. It was like my life was like laid out in your words. And some of you had reached lows that I haven't hit yet, right? And some of you had exactly the same story as me. And it was like, okay, I'm in the right spot. Like, I know that these people can help me. So I kept coming back. I kept showing up one day at a time. Um, I right away, people, just took me into their embrace, really. It was all through Zoom. There was a gentleman who would contact me every single day, reach out to me every day, multiple times a day. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Um, and I quickly realized that I had to be just how much I sought alcohol, I had to seek recovery. I quickly realized, like, as much effort as I put into my drinking, I had to try to put that much effort into my recovery. And you guys told me that. You guys told me that it was going to be okay, that there was a life on the other side of this, that I didn't have to feel that shame and guilt and remorse and that yuck every time that I woke up. I didn't have to feel that anymore. And you guys gave me some hope. I heard people say, you know, rehab was great, but it didn't fucking keep me sober. This is what keeps me sober every day. And I heard people say, you know, I heard that and I said, okay, well, if this is what works, and like, I need to do this. Like, I am so desperate, right? I learned about that gift of desperation. Um, After my parents had gotten divorced um, and I started drinking, I stopped going to church, all of that happened. I stopped practicing city yoga. I really grew apart from my higher power. I remember being pregnant with my oldest and doing those foxhole prayers. God, listen, it's been a while. I haven't talked to you in a really long time, but I'm 17 and pregnant and I really need your help. Um, I remember that being a time when I reached out to my higher power. I remember um, when my son was in about kindergarten, I picked up a pill and a heroin habit. And my I remember that God was the reason that stopped, because I had moved to get away from people, places, and things, and um I had run into somebody who was like, anything you need, I'll get it for you, because everywhere we go, there is our drug of choice. Like, everywhere we go, there we are, right? And so I remember one day my car, this is such a crazy story. My transmission started to go out on my car, and it stopped reversing. And in order to get to the job where the drugs were, I had to be able to reverse. And so I ended up losing that job. I ended up getting a job at a hospital as an admin, as a like a check-in person, admission person. And I walked every day. I had was just barely clean from pills and heroin, and I was like working my ass off to try to just stay that way all by myself, right? And I remember one night my mom lets me borrow her car, and I go down to that job immediately because I'm an addict. And immediately that's what I have the opportunity to fucking have a car that reverses. Guess where I'm headed? So I'm headed down to the job to see if I can meet up with the girl who supplied me with drugs. And she had been fired. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, like, okay. And I get home, a couple days go by, and I'm sitting in my car, because this is what I do. This is what I've always done. I like sit in my car, I listen to music. My car is my space. And I just try to reverse the car, and my fucking car starts reversing, and I'm like, what? And I remember just thinking, this is a God moment. This is a God moment for sure. Like, the heroin wasn't there, I couldn't do the heroin, like all of these things like lined up so perfectly. God kept me away from it. I just knew. But that was like the extent of my relationship with my higher power. So fast forward back to when I come into AA and you guys tell me, this isn't a religious program, this is a spiritual program, but you need to find God and you need to find him now. I was like, I don't want to. How do I find him now when I don't want to? I reached out to a dear friend of mine who has about 2 years, so longer than me in recovery. And I said, and she's like a self-proclaimed atheist. So I'm like, girl, how do you do this? How do you do this God thing? I can't do this God thing. She was like, just replace it with the word love. And I was like, all right, I can do that. And so, you know, find God and find him now, find love and find it now. I could do that. And that worked. That was enough. That was just enough, like, of a tweak to the program and a tweak to the text to make this palatable for me. And you guys let me do that because this is a higher power of my own understanding, and I did not understand. um, And then for a little while, well, probably like the whole first year of my recovery, I referred to my higher power as Howard. It was helpful to personify my higher power and make up this figment of my imagination that was in control of everything. And his name was Howard. And I learned in here to write letters to my higher power, um, and to become familiar with my higher power and to be able to communicate like a friend. So for 2 weeks, I wrote a letter to my higher power. Well, it never really stopped. The suggestion was 2 weeks. That was the other thing, is I learned that this program was a program of suggestions. And that was really nice. Like, it was nice to hear that I didn't have to do anything that I didn't want to do. Now, I will say that you do have to do what you don't want to do. You got to show up at meetings when you don't want to. You've got to share when you don't want to. At least that's been my experience. That's what's kept me sober. But in the beginning, I was welcomed in a soft, gentle, this is of your own understanding, this higher power thing, and it's going to be okay. And I was so grateful to everybody who just like wrapped their arms around me and just like took me in the middle of the herd and didn't let me go. They opened the room for me if I was struggling. They found other meetings for me to go to. I went on meetings like all day long. I would hop on a meeting at work and listen. I would hop on a meeting after work and listen. I would go to this meeting. I would go to a speaker meeting that is like right after our meeting. I would go to um, a meeting at 8:30, a meeting at 9:30. I was just like, I was a meeting junkie. And I remember thinking, like, am I just trading one addiction for another? Um, And yeah, the answer is yes, but but it's okay. It's okay to have a healthy addiction. It's okay to have something that you depend on in a healthy way, is what I've learned in recovery. I also remember like coming in and people being like, AA is like brainwashing. And the truth of the matter is that my brain needed to be washed. My thinking is what was fucked up. That's what I learned coming into these rooms, is that my thinking is the problem. It's not the drinking. I don't have a problem drinking. As a matter of fact, I can pick that motherfucker up anytime I want to. I can't put it down. And that's because when I start drinking, the mental obsession kicks in and the physical allergy kicks in, is what I've learned in these rooms, right? Is that I want more, 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 more. I am a real alcoholic. I am that way with everything. Oh, I'm on day 4 of no Red Bulls, guys. Um, I I'm because I am a more, 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 more kind of girl. It's that way with Red Bull, it's that way with alcohol, it's that way with cigarettes, it's that way with anything that can be slightly addictive. I don't know why it's not like that with water and exercise, but that's all right. Uh, I I I came into this space and I was so welcomed. I felt a part of, finally, and a part of something good, right? A part of something that was going to heal my life, a part of something that was going to change the course of my life, because the way I was headed, my kids were going to be more traumatized than they already were. The way I was headed, like, I was going to get seriously injured. I was headed for a DWI. I'm headed for all of these things that haven't happened yet. I learned about the yets when I came into these rooms. I learned that this disease is progressive and it was going to eventually get to that point. I was never going to fully escape the consequences of my drinking. Um, I learned, that there's a solution to this problem that I have. There is an answer, and it is in this big book and the 12 and 12. And my big book, oh, my fingers hurt. Sorry, I got bit by my dog the other day. I This big book is falling apart because I use it so much, because this is the guide to my life today. This is what I rely on. This is how I learned how to do things. I learned how to, I've learned financial advice in this room. I've learned um, how to be a better mom in this space. I've learned how to rely on other people and how to be reliable. I always thought I was reliable. I thought that I was honest. I remember coming in here early in recovery and being like, well, I'm one of the most honest people I know. And I remember the old timers just laughing, like, ha 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 ha, you have no idea. You think you're honest now. and um, but I was like always like brutally honest and blunt and all this, but that's all it was blunt. I wasn't being honest. And I didn't know that. I didn't even know what I didn't know, right? I didn't know that I was lying to myself. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette. Sorry, y'all. Mm, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I had no idea that I fit the description of an alcoholic since I was 16. I fit the description of an alcoholic who sat here craving a drink at 16 years old. I didn't know that I fit the description when I went into some CA meetings with some coworkers of mine who obviously saw the signs before I did. I was there as their emotional support or their moral support, and really they were like, "Bitch, you need this." Like, um, I identified with the people, but I didn't recognize that I was an addict, alcoholic. I did not see that. I looked at the steps and said, oh, I can do that myself. That's not a problem. Everybody should apply those to their life. Not a problem. I can take care of that. And I tried, and basically I would get to step 3 all by myself. I mean, it wasn't like in order or any of these things. It wasn't wholly honest. But I would do like a lot of help work and all of this stuff. I had every self-help book that known to man. Um, and I, would do all of this work by myself, but I could never get to the point where I was asking for my higher power to come in. That was never something I thought I needed. Wiped away, just like the big book said, wiped away those like the objections that I have to the word God and to religious ideas. I'm so glad that I no longer am hung up on that stuff because that stuff was holding me back. Having this contempt prior to investigation was holding me back. And I've learned so much in these rooms on how to just be a human, on how to just be a person, how to accept responsibility for my actions. I've learned how to just accept circumstances as they are. I've learned, my life is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There is a lot of unmanageability still. I'm still an alcoholic. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still a baby alcoholic. I don't even have 3 years sober. I I am still figuring it out. There are still some unmanageabilities, but I see them today, right? I see them, I recognize them, I know that there is a solution. I don't freak out about, oh no, this bill didn't get paid, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what to do. No, I know what to do today. I know how to manage this. I have people who today I can be like, I can ask my mom for money and I'll pay her back and she knows I'll pay her back, right? Um, I'm a different person today than I was when I was drinking. I don't lie, cheat, steal from people, from myself. Um, I try to live an honest life today. I, I work these steps. I work with a sponsor. I talk to my sponsor pretty regularly. I call her about things that are big book related and not because life gets lifey and I need help sometimes figuring out what the next right thing is to do. Um, but I have learned how to do the next right thing in this program. Um, and when I fuck it up, because inevitably I'm going to fuck it up. When I fuck it up, I learn how to make amends, right? When I fuck it up, I learn how to take accountability and then how to make it right to the best of my ability, right? And that's all I can do. I am just a human being. I'm just an alcoholic. I'm just one sick person. Um, We're all sick people, but we are not all sick on the same day. We we are good resources for each other. We can help each other. This fellowship has been so incredible in my life. I have met some of the best people in these rooms, man. You would think, right? Like in a room full of alcoholics, like I just didn't know what kind of people I was going to meet. Man, we are the best people. Alcoholics are the best. We are resourceful. We are help. We really do want to help. We are God, we are resourceful. Like that is just one thing I will say, like in addiction. And if we can be that resourceful in our recovery, man, we have every chance at success. Because as hard as I worked to get fucked up, as hard as I worked to hide how fucked up I was getting, as hard as I worked to do all of those things, if I put half that much energy into my recovery, it'll be well worth it. And I feel like it has been well worth it. I'm so grateful and blessed. Today, I am the team mom for my youngest son's football team, who I like forgot to mention halfway all this whole story. Sounds like I only have one kid. I've got three. um, um, I am the team mom for his football team. I am a better partner, not really a better housekeeper. We're still working on that. I am a better employee. I show up. I don't call in because I'm hungover. Um, I I'm just I don't risk, I don't live on that risk anymore, right? Like I just don't live like risking everything, driving all fucked up, doing all of those things. Like I just don't live like that anymore in that kind of fear and anxiety and stress. I don't have those feelings anymore. Not like that. Um, not the way that it was when I was like sitting here like, oh fuck, there's a cop, there's a cop, there's a cop, there's a cop, there's a cop. Like, I don't live like that. And I live a relatively happy, joyous, and free life. There are things, I'm still addicted to cigarettes, right? I'm not totally free from everything right now. But I'm working every day towards it. And I know when I am ready to quit smoking cigarettes that this program will help me do it. I know that. This program has been a godsend for so many things. Like I came here to quit drinking and I learned how to be a person. I came here to quit drinking and I learned how to be a friend. I came here to quit drinking and I learned how to be a mother. I came here to quit drinking and I learned how to be a better daughter. Um, I, I, I get so much perspective from the people in these rooms, that I can't imagine my life without you guys. Um, I get itchy at 2:30 when it's meeting time. I like know something's not right. I got to treat my alcoholism, because what I've learned in this program is that I wake up with untreated alcoholism every single day. And every single day I have to treat my alcoholism, not with a pill, but with my higher power. I need to treat my alcoholism with meetings. I need to treat my alcoholism with the big book, and with the 12 and 12. I need this program. Um, I need this program more than I need anything in my life. I wanted to read the promises, but I don't know what page they're on, and my little tabby is not on here. So maybe it's not meant to be. But I just you guys to know that the promises in this big book, because I'm not going to infer it right now. The promises in this big book, they really do come true. They really do come true if you work for them. This program is a program of action. This is a program where when you work, you get the results. This program is not for those who want it. This program is not for those who need it. This program is for those who do it. And I'm grateful that I found the willingness to do this program, to do. I'm so grateful to be an alcoholic because it answers a lot of questions that I've had about myself for a long time. It answers what's the age-old question, what's wrong with me? It answers that question. I'm an alcoholic and there's a solution to that. So it's really not a problem at all. My only problem today is me. I get in my own way, and I know that today because of this program. I've been so blessed, and I'm so grateful. The gratitude is incomprehensible. Um, so with that, I am going to read the promises since Monty helped me out here. Oh, Jesus. And then I'm going to honk my horn. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. That was my experience. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. And that is also true. It is not the same kind of happiness that I thought I felt in my drinking. This new happiness is something that is so beautiful. It is something that it is truly a freeing feeling. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. I do not regret any of my past today because my past is what will be the guiding light for another alcoholic to get sober. We will comprehend the word of serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. Like I said, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. Oh, self-pity. Oh, self-pity. If I can talk about one thing, it is the self-pity. I was a poor me, poor me, poor me, a drink motherfucker. I was a mess. It was poor me. I was a victim. Um, even though I was a strong, independent woman who was a single mom for a lot of years and who could handle everything and didn't need no man, I still somehow that strong woman still 100% simultaneously lived in self-pity. Because it was poor me, I'm alone, poor me this, poor me that. And when I learned pour me, pour me, pour me a drink, and I learned how important true humility was, I learned that true humility is not thinking too high of yourself, but it's also not thinking too low of yourself. It's not really thinking about yourself too much at all. And once you can get yourself out of self, then that self-pity just takes care of itself, has been my experience. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if you work for them. And that has been my experience. Those promises really do come true. But you got to work for them. I think that's all I have to say. I did better than an hour and a half.